Greetings, Reformed Church in America. My name is Derrick Jones. I'm the supervisor of mission programs in Africa for the Reformed Church in America. I'm delighted to be here with Barbara Kapenga. And I'm asking her a few questions as she comes to the end of her career and retiring from mission service. Barbara, I know you've served roughly 38 years of ministry and missions in Africa. Could you tell us about the core focus of your work in Africa and where and how have you served?
Greetings, everyone. Yeah, I'm happy to try to answer your questions. The main focus of my work through all those years was teaching in Bible schools and seminaries to train evangelists, pastors, and other church leaders. When I say other church leaders, of course, I mean teachers, administrators, women's work coordinators, youth workers, project coordinators, even musicians at one time. So quite a very variegated group of people. Generally, I was assigned to teach church history and Old Testament courses, plus practical courses like teaching methods, study methods or research methods, Christian education, occasional literacy classes, and even typing I taught once. The countries I served in, many of you know those. The main ones I served in were Sudan and Niger and Ethiopia and finally Malawi. I mainly taught adults, although here and there I taught grade school and high school, but for most of the time I was teaching adults, 25 to 55 years old. Almost all were men. The one place I had more than 2 or 3 women students was in Addis Ababa, and that was a real change. It was nice, and the reason there were more women students there was that there were scholarships from foreign missions to specifically bring women into theological studies. So that was great.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. I'm just wondering, after you've been in Africa and served for 38 years, how has the church been impacted by your ministry? And how have you been impacted by your experiences in Africa?
Well, you know, as a teacher, it's always really hard to evaluate your impact. When I think of my own education and the teachers who made an impact on me, they probably never knew it. You know, my teaching method was strongly based on my 6th grade teacher, Miss Kinney. Did she ever know that? No, you know, but she made a real difference in my life and in the way I taught. So that's just one thing to bear in mind. Teaching is like planting a seed. Someone else may water it, someone else may harvest it. So you don't always know your effect. Another thing to remember is that teaching is a team effort. You know, you're not teaching alone. Every student is impacted by the other teachers, the administrators, their families, student friends, the people who advise them in their internships, the staff there, even supporters like RCA congregations have a big impact, even though they're sometimes invisible, but they are doing a job there. So you can never imagine that you're Superman when you're a teacher, that you're solving it all by yourself. Yeah? No, it's a huge team effort. And finally, God is in control. And you know, that's where it really is at, okay? So I learned a lot along the way, that's for sure. And including that this is a team work. We have to work together to achieve things. But I learned a lot about politics, violence, awful suffering. I learned about the fear and courage of people who are persecuted and oppressed. And in the same time, I learned about generosity and being cheerful in adversity. And I learned about the power of prayer and God's faithfulness through all those things. God is faithful in so many ways, but also through so many people, and that includes you, the congregations. I hope I was able to pass on some of that learning to my supporters, those who were God's ambassadors behind me, yeah, and just pray for blessing on them, yeah.
Barbara, what has been your motivation or your greatest joy in serving in Africa? And could you tell a story about a student or share about your sense of call to missions?
Wow, well, I can't tell you about any big lightning bolts that hit me or or great visions that were my call. I'd say God was sort of training me gradually and nudging me in various directions. And you only see that in retrospect sometimes. I think I was telling you the other day that when I applied to the Peace Corps, this is before I joined RCA, on the application form, they ask, well, where would you like to go? And I wrote, anywhere but Africa, not Africa. So they promptly offered me 3 places in Africa, and later on I decided God knew best. Maybe the Peace Corps knew best, but I think God was behind that. Yeah, I fell in love with Africa in the Peace Corps. And I also, after a bit of a crisis of faith in college, that really brought me back to a decision that I wanted to commit to mission work. So that had a big influence. Also, after getting my master's and teacher certification, I joined the RCA and I was sent to Egypt. Well, that's Africa physically, but it's not Africa culturally. Yeah. So I was, okay, Egypt. But all the projects there were closed down by the government soon after I arrived. So I spent 6 months trying to decide, and it was a chance encounter that sent me to South Sudan. And so again, who and how did that come about? I think my greatest joy there was serving. My greatest joy in serving was being with people. When I joined the Peace Corps, even before RCA, I was one of those shy introverts who never spoke. Yeah, and so when I first got to the village I was assigned to in Chad, a bunch of Chadian women came to visit me. And I said, oh, it's so nice you came to visit, huh? That's great. Yes, they said we needed to come because it's bad to think. And I'm like, bad to think? What do they mean? Well, I realized what they meant. It's not good for you to sit at home alone, getting depressed and, unhappy. And I took that lesson to heart. When you start feeling a bit worried or depressed, get out there, go visit people, meet your friends. And so that was something I learned, to be much more outgoing and to appreciate people. And I think that was easier maybe as a single person, because of course I didn't have to get home for dinner on time if I was visiting people. I didn't have to go cook for the kids or anything. So I could just be out all day if I wanted, if it wasn't work time. So that was very helpful. It was also very helpful for me that I had a background growing up in the Middle East. And as a result, many of my friends were Muslims. And people really are amazing, especially those who aren't looking at the world by worldly standards. I remember I wrote in a dear friend's letter about what students had put in the yearbook as a verse that defined them, and it was put under their picture. And I'll just mention 3 of them. One was a student called Teresa, And he had really stood up against ethnicity and people supporting wrongdoing just because the wrongdoer was from their ethnic group. And he went against this, and he was seriously persecuted by his own ethnic group for standing up for the right, and had a really hard time. But what did he choose to say? Put under his picture, he wrote, "Oh Lord, my hope that dried, it has now blossomed." And so he graduated despite all that, and he was still going on. So I was really impressed with his courage, yeah, and his integrity. Another woman student we had, Boyatu, she had been married for 3 days, and then her husband had left for America and promised to bring her when he got settled. Well, that had been 15 years earlier. He never got in touch. He never came back. And so there she was, married, but unable, but not a widow, so she couldn't remarry. She couldn't have kids. She was just stuck. And it was a terrible thing. So coming to seminary was a huge thing for her. And what did she put under hers? She quoted from Jeremiah, "So there is hope for my future again." So that was a huge thing to send her. And she went on and did a lot of work with the women's departments. Yenayalam, at graduation, she had been a widow for just 7 days. Her husband had suddenly died of cerebral malaria. And she wrote, "The Lord is my strength and my song." Such an inspiration. So you really learn a lot from your students.
Just wondering, as the global South has grown tremendously, and now the majority of Christians in the world are now in Africa, because even as I think about 1970, there were roughly 142 million Christians in Africa. And to date, there's over 630 million Christians in Africa. What would you say, what is your hope for Africa? And also, what can North American churches learn from Africa and the global South? And how can we support one another?
Yeah, it's an amazing thing that's happening in the global South with this just explosion of Christianity, and it's quite exciting. Yeah, I think we can learn a lot from, as Westerners, actually from church history. Times change, yeah, and when we think of it, for the first, say, 1,000 years of Christianity, Asia and Africa were the big leaders. And it's really with the Crusades that the center of Christianity shifted and started moving west. But now it's like, what's happening? It's going back again. So this is a huge sea change. Secondly, another thing we learned from church history is that foreign missionaries are not really the right people to evangelize. Local people are the best. Foreign missionaries, from all the stories that when I teach African church history, I mean, they'll come in, they'll spend 30, 40 years struggling away in terrible circumstances. And by the time they leave or die, they might have converted between 2 and 10 people. And they felt like real failures. But those 2 or 10 people evangelized thousands. And it's amazing, because they know how to talk the language. They are from the same culture. People will listen more readily to them. And it was just an explosion that way. But that seed was important. But another important thing is later on. I remember in Sudan, our students would go out in the summer and do internships or go all over, and they'd come back and they'd like, wow, we just, we were in this place and we baptized 300 people in 2 days, or 500. And we're all excited. And then someone is like, yeah, but now what? Who's going to teach them? Who's going to disciple them? I mean, they're going to lose it if they don't use it, in a sense. And that's where missions can really come in to help support this teach and disciple people so that new converts remain in the faith and grow in it. Missionaries can work alongside local congregations to train and equip personnel, to support development, to share fellowship. And that's where we can really do a big job. And I think that's very important. I think RCA has been really wise to adopt a more partnership model in missions, in recognition that we who are foreign to the local situations, we're not there to run the show, but we're there to work alongside local brothers and sisters in Christ, to share our experience, to learn from them too. That's what mission is. It's about being active in God's kingdom with where people believe, with people who are different from us often. They might be of a different race, they're from a different place, they have a different culture. But we should be welcoming that chance to work together in service to the Lord. And I think there's a big future, awaiting. It's amazing. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Barbara, is there anything else you want to say to your all the churches and individuals that have supported you over these years?
Well, I'm just so sorry I haven't been able to come and visit everybody. It's terrible, that I was not able to see you and really say goodbye in person. But I do really thank you. You have been the constant in my career and very important, to my life and to my work. And I just want to say thank you so much, and God bless you.
Barbara, I can truthfully say that it has been a joy to serve as your supervisor within the RCA, and also to be your friend over these number of years. And I've seen the great passion and joy that you have in teaching and the impact that you had in Ethiopia and Malawi firsthand. And I just want to say personally, thank you for the contributions that you've made in the life of the church in Africa. I know you're very modest, but I do know, I thank God that you have had a hand over these 38 years in training and equipping thousands of persons in the life of the church in Africa. And though it may seem small, but you have had a hand, and by God's grace, in contributing towards the growth in the life of the church. As many pastors and evangelists have been equipped and trained through your hand, through you, as well as many others in which you serve. And I just truly thank God for you. And I also thank God for our RCA mission supporting churches, because while Barbara's been on the front lines, she cannot be where she has been without your support, your prayers over the years. And I want to truthfully say thank you on behalf of RCA Global Mission. And may the Lord richly bless you, Barbara, as you go into retirement. And may the Lord continue to bless RCA congregations and churches as they faithfully support RCA Global Mission. God bless you.
Amen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.